Welcome back to One-Liner Wednesdays. I am Kelly Hyde, and I am your host through this wild and crazy world of my one-liner stories. And you can find me, I'm the Indie Dyer, obviously, for Peggy Jane Fibers. You can find me at peggyjanefibers.com. That's my online yarn store. My yarn is also sold at a store in Burlington, Vermont called Must Love Yarn, and so you can purchase it there as well. There are special colorways that I only do for that store that you can only get through them, so it's good to go shop at your local yarn store. And you can also find me on Instagram under Peggy Jane Fibers, and you can also find me on Facebook under Peggy Jane Fibers. So I'm all over the place, online, social media, the whole shebang. So let's talk about this week's yarn. So this is the colorway. It's lots of blues and greens. Yes, it's definitely got this whole oceany feel to it. So there's turquoises, there's blues, there's gray speckles, there's this really bright green in there, and then there's also this really olivey green. I'll show you the swatch so you can see what it looks like knitted up. I really work hard to make sure that my yarn does not pool and really is nicely variegated, and I definitely achieved it with this yarn. And you can see the gray speckles are subtle, but they're definitely there. So I think it knits up really, really nice. So that's this yarn, and it's on Everyday Sock and Posh Merino in my shop, so you can go check that out. There'll be more pictures online and all of that kind of thing. So, so let me tell you the story about this yarn. This story, I'm not living with her. I'll start the initial story with just the incident of when this happened. I think, in all honesty, I didn't actually say I'm not living with her, but the feeling was really clear that I'm not living with her. So when I was 21, I had left college. Things happened. I left college, and I found myself living with my cousin Stephanie, who we had lived in Burlington, Vermont together from the fall. And then around April or so, Stephanie was going to get ready to move out, and I needed a roommate. And Stephanie said, "Oh, Allison can move in for the summer." Allison's her sister, also obviously my cousin, because Allison was in college at UVM, and Allison needed a place to stay for the summer. And I was like, no. I'm not living with her. And again, I don't think I said it out loud, but it was really clear that I did not want her moving in. I did not want to live with her. I think it's probably fair to say that I didn't like her. And I certainly thought she didn't like me. I couldn't imagine having to live with her. And, you know, we're the same age. So we're both, 20, 21 at the time. But, things happen. And she did end up moving in. So let me tell you a little bit of the history of why I didn't want her to move in. And so we grew up together, and that's all fine. We were just cousins. We played together. We were together at Christmas and holidays and birthdays and all those kinds of things. And then we went to high school together. And that's where the rift grew. Now, Allison will laugh when I tell this story, and Allison likes to say, "Oh, Kelly, you hated me." And I was like, well, yeah, I probably did. We were very different. So Allison was pretty and popular and really smart and had this big group of friends. And when you're in high school, you don't see beyond that. You don't know a person's internal life, and I certainly didn't know her internal life, though I know it well enough now. And I just thought she was kind of a little snobby. I was not pretty. I was so not pretty. And I'm even too vain, even at this point, to pull out a picture to prove it to you. But I will tell you that this picture that I'm thinking of is me, a freshman in high school. And when I first started dating my husband, he saw the picture and he started laughing. Like, it was so bad. I was so dorky looking. The picture's so awful, but it was really real. It's not just the picture. Like, I really looked like that. Even he started laughing. And I am not putting that on a public podcast. It's just not going to happen. So anyway, that was me. I didn't have that many friends. I was really dorky. I was smart, but Allison, in my opinion, and my view at the time for sure, was that she was sort of brilliant. Like, she got straight A's and she studied, and she had boyfriends. So she was really, we could not have been more different. And even though our high school wasn't that big, we did not travel in the same social circles, even though we were in a lot of the same classes together, which is really weird. So it is safe to say that we were definitely not friends at all. And this is how I saw her. And so then I find myself, and then we go on our separate ways. Oh, and this is like, I have this picture, and this is really telling. So this is our high school graduation. And of course, right, we're at the same party. And, look at the body language. Of course, we'd been at Project Graduation all night. But look at the body language. We're not looking at each other. And also, just as an aside, isn't this kind of a funny picture? Like, they're not quite sure. Like, let's sort of get the cake in the picture, but we'll cut off their eyes. This is a very funny picture. But this is an important picture to note because of what's coming. So here I find myself at age 21. And Allison is going to move into my apartment for the summer. And I was pretty well horrified. What Allison says now, she said that at the time when Stephanie was describing to her kind of me and who I was, she knew we would be great together. We would be great roommates. We would get along really well. But I just didn't see it at all. So she moves in. And as it turns out, we talk, because that's what young 20-somethings do. They talk. What else do we do? We don't have any money. So she's in college, I'm working. Like, there was no money. So you talk, and you talk, and you talk, and you talk. And we discovered that summer that we had so much in common, like crazy amounts in common. There's first of all just this background, right? Like, we talked about our families, and we talked about our mothers and our families and what they're like. And you have this base of common knowledge about each other that you don't have with somebody else. So there was this sort of instant thing for us to talk about. And then, I don't even remember what we talked about that summer, but we both knew within a couple weeks of like hours of talking, we were like best friends instantly, like just like that. And it was an amazing summer. Amazing. And I'm 45 now, so that was like 25 years ago. And it is without question or doubt that Allison, my cousin, is my best friend in the whole world forever and ever, and that is it. And over the last 25 years, like, we spent that summer together, we lived together, and then I moved to New York City. She went back to school in Burlington. And from that point on, we stayed in touch the best we could. This is before social media, it's before cell phones, it's before all of that. So we would call each other when we could. We would send emails. That sort of began to be a thing. We would see each other at family gatherings. So this was a big piece of like how we stayed connected. So I have these pictures. So this is 1994. This is us at Christmas in 1994. And I love this picture. We both had short hair. She grew hers out very shortly after this. So we would see each other. And again, so look at the body language. Like, this is when we got to see each other. I would come home for Christmas. And we were inseparable. Inseparable. And it was this wonderful, wonderful friendship. And then 1996, this is actually the exact same corner at my Aunt Sharon's house. This is 1996. Look at that. I've been New Yorkified in this picture. Allison has grown her hair back out. And I could bore you with the 20,000 pictures I have of me and Allison, and like selfies. Now it's selfies. I have 20 gazillion selfies, and I'll put a little picture collage at the end of like all the different selfies that we take. But this is a person who knows everything there is to know about me, and I know everything there is to know about her. And we didn't live in the same place for 15 years. That first 15 years of our friendship, we did not live in the same place within close proximity. So we would visit, we would do the best we can. And then 10 years ago, I moved. Oh, and then at some point, like, I lived in New York City. Allison graduated. She moved to Boston. So I'm in New York City. She's in Boston. And then I moved back to Vermont, but she's still in Boston. We were just far apart. And then finally, she moves back to Vermont. I was in Vermont, but I was in northern Vermont. She was in Burlington. So we were still 2 hours away. So we still weren't in close proximity. And then 10 years ago, I moved outside of Burlington. And for the first time in 15 years, we were in close proximity to each other. And it was so crazy exciting. Like, it was the best. Our lives are really different, and they were really different at the time. We never could have imagined that we would have babies at the same time, but her middle child and my only child are like 12, 14 months apart in age, and now they are really tight friends, and we earned that because they didn't like each other for the first 4 years of life, and it was really dreadful. But yeah, so it's not a funny story. I guess it's more just a touching story that I had no idea that we would end up being best friends from a summer of living together, and all of the things that happen in your life that lead you to a certain place. And we've been best friends for 25 years, and like, stuff has happened, and my mom was sick, and then my mom died, and she just knows about all of it because she knows my family. We know each other's families. And so I love her to pieces. So I had to make this yarn for her. Now, the special thing about this yarn is that these are her favorite colors. And so all these turquoises and greens and all of that, these are her favorite colors. She doesn't knit, but it doesn't matter because this is her yarn. And we do love to tell that story. And it is a pretty funny story about how Allison likes to say, well, you didn't even like me, Kelly. And I was like, well, don't you remember like when you pushed me off the raft when we were 16 and we were with your boyfriend, and you pushed me off the raft and it was humiliating. Anyway, yeah, it's all good. So that is the story of I am not living with her. So that's that. And I'll finish up with a little fun project that I've been working on. And again, if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen this. So look at this. I found this tutorial for covered magnets. So these are magnets, and they are knitted with a cover over them. And they are so darn cute. Look at that. It takes like a gram of yarn, and you just magic loop it up. You cast on, Judy's Magic Cast On, magic loop it up, and then graft the top. And truly, grafting is not that hard if you know the grafting song. And maybe at some point we'll talk about the grafting song because it is how I remember how to graft. So I got this tutorial from a woman on Instagram called Jane Wildskane. And I think she started following me, or she liked something, and I always check out their pictures. And I saw that tutorial, and I'm like, that's so cute. So I think I'm just gonna, slowly over time, I'm gonna make these up, and I'll probably sell them in either singles or packs of 3. But if you're a knitter, obviously you can make your own. Somebody on my Instagram said these would be really great as like to keep your place on a pattern. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that because I don't use magnets, but that would be great. But they're actually really strong too, even though they have the knitted cover, because the magnets are so super strong. So anyway, that is kind of the fun thing I've been working on this week, and it uses up all your little scraps, and that's kind of nice. So I think that's it for this week's One Liner Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed it. It's not a funny story, but it's a good story. It's a good story. Yeah. It's a good story. So I'll see you next week. I already have next week planned, and next week's One Liner Wednesday, I'm not sure of the name of it yet, but it is based around a student at my school that I work in, and she knows about it, and she is so super excited. She has been asking me, like, when are you going to do my yarn, Mrs. Hyde? When are you going to do my yarn? And I was like, Lizzie, you're up next week. So come back next week because it's going to be a wild yarn. I know what colors it's going to be. I haven't dyed it yet. I'll do it this weekend. But it's going to be a pretty wild yarn. So thank you for joining me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Follow me on Instagram, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.